Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Investor Roundtable here at Equity Guru, where we discuss companies and situations and give you our opinion on them. And based on that information, you can make whatever decision you may in terms of investing or not, or changing your viewpoint of the stock market in and of itself. Just recently, we had the VRIC, that's the Vancouver Resource Investors Conference, take place here in Vancouver for 2023. There has been a bit of a pause in operations as the pandemic soared through our country and the world, for that matter. But now everyone's back to the path, trying to pound that pavement to find investor interest and sentiment. How was sentiment this year, guys? I mean, we all went, we sat there, we took it all in. Chris, what was your sort of 5 minute sort of breakdown of how you felt the VRIC conference was?
So, I always struggle with the timing of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference because it's so early in the year. It seems like people aren't yet out doing their sort of post-tax loss selling investing yet. But also, it's kind of a good way to get the temperature before the action really kicks in around late January, early February. A couple of years back before COVID, things were going super hot. The economy was charging, everyone was getting free money, crypto was booming. Like it just seemed, psychedelics were coming, blockchain was still creaking along, like everything was just coming up roses. Oil and gas was even kicking. A few years before that, it was like people were throwing nooses over the rafters. Everyone was looking for a cheap way out of the business. This year, last year was like, hey, everybody, we're still alive. And some people still weren't really ready to come out of their cabins. This year, it was good to see the business out in full flow. Like people I haven't spoken to for 3-4 years. People who the last time I saw them, I was being carried out of a bar in Toronto. It's good to show people you're still alive and not in some sort of trouble. It was interesting to see what was hot. And for that, there's only really 3 things. People were trying to say gold is going to be hot. There was a lot of like, okay, gold sucked in 2022, but this time for sure. And I remember back last year, there was a lot of the same sort of talks saying, gold sucked last year, but 2022, it's really going to take off. But what really sort of turned my head was the interest in uranium is really, really hot. I guess battery metals sort of lines up with that as well. Green energy, you could wrap all that into one big bow. And the thing that people were talking about that isn't really resources based was AI. And I could see that coming. Certainly in the news, there's a lot of interest in artificial intelligence. But there was a little bit of discussion with some people. I talked to Jordan Trimble at Sky Harbor about it for about half an hour. And the discussion points were like taking terabytes of historic mining data, drill data, and having AI look at it as like, what are the best places to start looking. That's not something that we're there with yet. But as AI starts to leach into every business sector, I could see a really big push in resources for utilizing AI products to do what, geologists spend a lot of time and training and guesswork in right now. If you can get the machines to go through your petabytes of historic data and find some great targets that people haven't necessarily considered, or even go through data from your neighbors and see what that might look like as it pertains to your own property. Like I think AI is going to really kickstart resources in a way that not much has to this point. Over the last few years, the only real technology innovation has been maybe using satellite imagery to track some early stage indications that you might want to put a little ribbon around the cow pasture. But mining, for the most part, is such an archaic technology and so due for something that can come along and just say, okay, let's stop the 5 years of exploration and maybe stitch that down into 6 months.
Very true. Very true. Vishal, our technical master, what's your viewpoint of the conference? How did you feel about it?
I thought it was a really good sentiment this year. I think it was one of the best sentiment I've seen since it was the time when Bitcoin hit $20,000, and that conference was not just a gold conference, but it turned to a Bitcoin conference. It was packed at that time, I remember, and I think the attendance was pretty good this year. They did send out an email actually saying that they had over 6,000 people sign up. So please come early if you want to guarantee yourself a seat at one of the workshops, the larger workshops there. I also remember I did attend one of the first workshops in the morning, and Jay Martin, the guy who created this VRIC thing under Cambridge House, asked a question. He said, put up your hand if this is your first VRIC that you have ever attended, and about 85 to 90% of the audience's hands went up. I was actually quite surprised about that. But I'm taking that as a sign of, the retail crowd is paying attention to resources, commodities. It might not be gold, as Chris said, but I do know, uranium is very, very hot. Silver still has a nice, crowd as well. But I do believe, yes, lithium and those green metals are getting a lot of attention from the retail crowd. So I thought that was exciting by itself. I had a few friends also attend who have never attended before, and they were quite excited. And just to get them out to a resource conference, I think is saying something as well, because these are the type of people that I know who've always been into the technology stuff, right? The Facebooks and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure they would love AI as well, but I'm just saying, to get them out to a commodity conference is saying something, I think, about where people are looking at or looking for gains, especially when more people are paying attention to, I guess, inflation, interest rates, and all that kind of stuff. I also did attend another conference like a week after. It was called the World Economic Outlook conference as well. So that just happened on Friday and Saturday. A lot of talk about gold and silver and uranium as well. But I just want to say that that was also very well attended. And I think they also had some record numbers of attendees in that conference as well. So looking at that, I think really positive signs about the retail crowd and what they're looking for. This was also one of the conferences where, I'm showing you the charts of gold and silver, which actually have taken a bit of a dump post Friday, but it was one of the few times where gold and silver were actually rising higher at a VRIC conference. All the other times I remember attending VRIC, gold or silver was always either breaking below some lows or heading a bit lower, but this was the first one in a long time that I remember where gold and silver were actually rising. And of course, from talking with some of the companies and the CEOs there, they were quite positive. I find they were more positive this year than they were last year about things. So, putting that together, the retail crowd was excited, and I think some of the guys in the sector are also excited. But I guess you can argue they're always excited. But taking those two things together, I think it was positive signs.
It's interesting. I think that for me, the barometer has always been how many women are at the conference, right? Not like working the booths, but like how many women are walking around with their pocketbook looking for somewhere to put their money. Back when we first started going to these things in like 2015, there was no women. Like if a woman walked in the door, people were like, what booth do you work at, right? Or who are you married to? We've been talking about young investors and female investors since like 2017, 2018. And for a couple of years there, it was still like, women would come in, but only as a group. And then they would walk through and quickly get out of there because it seemed like it was an anomaly. Now, man, you throw a rock, you're hitting a guy under the age of 25 in the head. You throw 3 rocks, you might hit a woman. And that's, to me, like fantastic progress.
Yeah.
First of all, because the people who used to invest in mining stocks were like 2% of investors, let alone people. Now there's so many more people taking control of their finance rather than just giving it to a guy at the bank and getting 3% after taxes. The one thing that I think really trails is the attendees on the conference side, like the booths, understanding this market and presenting themselves in a way that makes sense. There's still no effort made on the vendor side to have like backdrops that explain what you're looking at. It's still like 150 maps with red blobs and green blobs, 150 pictures of a guy in a hard hat, 150 pictures of a desolate wasteland, as if it's a, hey, look at what we've done here. We've destroyed the environment. Invest in us. Like, there's no one use. So I was telling people, like, if I was a mining guy and I had a booth at the conference, I would go out and get like 50 Minecraft blocks made up out of cardboard boxes and stack them on top of each other, like or gold, diamond, emeralds, a couple of big guys in Minecraft outfits, and be different, like be noticeable, right? Be that one place where that's handing out free beer or coffee or something. Like every one of these guys, it's the same table, the same backdrop. Some of the backdrops are so hard to read.
Yeah.
That you honestly have to go up and stand up next to them. Like there's very zero thought given from the companies. The conference producers, on the other hand, they're going out and finding big names. They're finding big names in the investing community, but also on the political side. I remember a couple of years ago, they got Tim Sykes out to yell at the crowd and get yelled at in return.
Yeah.
About how he was a fake millionaire. Like that sort of stuff is fun and gets people a little bit more interested than 75 companies walking you through a 32-page slideshow that you can find on their website. I will say though, there was no Chris Parry talk this year for the first time in a decade.
No, he took a break and wandered through the crowd.
I think they get upset when I swear.
We had people come up to our booth saying that that's the only reason they come out to these shows, to hear you speak, and they were a bit upset that you weren't.
Yeah, well, they can always come to the booth and hear a one-on-one.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask me what I think of someone, I'll tell you. Galen, when you were doing the show too.
I was doing the rounds. I'd have to sort of agree on pretty well all the points that you guys brought up. The year before was a bit of a zombie fest. Everyone was on automatic. They were there just doing the job and not really excited about it. Yeah, it was just going through the motions. This is when the emotion actually came back into it. So people were actually feeling optimistic. And as mentioned earlier, the minerals that were the highlight of the show, at least of interest, were the uranium and silver, actually, which was kind of interesting because these metals are, of course, going to be very important in terms of the transition to green energy. So the investors were very much interested in that. And I think that was also the swing in terms of what is bringing in the newer demographic. Because up until that point, and I shouldn't say that like till right now, because it's been gradually changing over the last few years, it has been a very much isolated and aging demographic in terms of investors who already knew everything about the geology and would basically just come in and read a couple of maps and then walk out again. Now it's people that are very much interested in learning about the process, learning about what ESG principles are being applied in that process, and then really understanding just how important mining is to their modern day life, because you can't have an iPhone without opening a mine. That's basically it. And there's going to be a lot more minerals required as we push forward and start doing power storage and new types of energy generation. It's exciting. So that's what I saw, and it's kind of interesting to see after all that time away. Now, my question to you guys is, was there anyone that sort of stood out for you in terms of presenters or participants in that show? Did anybody stand out this time around, Chris?
It may seem self-serving because they're a client, but Sky Harbor, for me, they were a couple of rows down from us, but in view, and that booth was humming. Whenever I talk to somebody about uranium and they say, well, so who do you like? I'd say Sky Harbor, and they'd be like, yeah, like, like those guys have got something going on. It's real interesting. I bumped into our friends from Standard Uranium. They were also there. But there was Dev showed up from Fission. Whenever Dev shows up to a conference, you know that they've accidentally stumbled upon something. But Sky Harbor to me is a good mix of like a undervalued, well-run, covering all the bases, run by a young management outfit, but with older management behind them. Like everybody's got respect for Sky Harbor. It's like Tommy Humphries, former CEO of CEO.ca, and longtime friend of mine, came in and got 10 feet in the door till he was in front of the Sky Harbor booth, and honestly didn't get out of that space for about 40 minutes because of the number of people that were there who were saying hello. It just seemed to be the place where people were congregating. It was as if they were handing out free beer, and all they were really doing is they're just a smart bunch of people who are happy to answer questions from people who are happy to ask questions of smart people.
There you go. How about you, Vishal? Anybody stand out for you?
For sure, yeah. For speaker wise, I have to put a plug there, of course, for Fabi Lara and her uranium stuff.
Oh God, Fabi's on fire.
Yeah.
Fabi's the new Barry. She's got like all the speaking gigs.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. She had like I think three talks, and she was even in the big uranium panel there at the end as well. So, really good stuff there. I also liked Christopher Aaron, who basically is more of a technical guy with his charts and stuff. So I was a big fan because I was like, hey, I see the same thing that you're talking about. So it's always good to see that. Company wise, one thing I've noticed in recent VRIC conferences is that there's a lot of these South American companies that basically in South America, a lot of these mines have been family owned and have been family owned throughout generations. And now, they're realizing that I guess they can raise funds or make some money by listing their shares on the Toronto or the Canadian markets. So I've seen, these companies that have a mine in production, they're making money, they have multiple mines, and I've never heard about them. And a lot of the markets haven't heard about them. So this year, there was a company called G Mining Ventures, which owns a mine in Brazil. The mine is it's in production right now. Sorry, not in production, it's being built. It's going to be in production, I believe, in 2024. But you have like big names like Franco-Nevada and I think Agnico as well. But Franco-Nevada for sure behind it. So you have these big boys, that are looking at South America, and it's like these companies that you've never heard of. So that was G Mining Ventures. Funnily enough, I actually ran into CEOs of companies that didn't even have a booth there, such as Sirius Resources, who have a gold project in Quebec, but they also put out news recently about lithium finds because there's a lot of big news about lithium in that part of Quebec where their mine is located. And also Guanajuato Silver, which is a silver company, producing company. I've written some articles about them on EQUITY.GURU as well. So it was a good mix. There's quite a few surprises. And, if you follow EQUITY.GURU, you will definitely see me write more articles about these companies that I did enjoy and I did talk to because I still have quite a list to go through.
That sounds great. I'm going to chime in on Chris for the Sky Harbor Resources. It was a very active booth. As it's not unbelievable that people would have a lot of interest in this company because they have some pretty interesting assets, and they are operating out of the Athabasca Basin. Man, I can speak, which is a treasure trove of uranium at this point, and probably our Western savior for mining these particular elements.
Like if I was Prime Minister, honest to God, I'd be starting nuclear reactor projects all across the north, and giving the US electricity on the cheap till the end of time. It's like if you think long term, uranium just makes so much sense. We're starting to see modular nuclear reactor projects in the US now, which means we're not far from the Back to the Future model of having the Mr. Fusion in everybody's DeLorean.
Exactly. Yeah, because basically these modular units can fit in a semi-trailer.
Yeah.
Ain't that big.
Actually a company, I can't remember the name of it at the conference, but that had a jar of little rubber pellets. Yeah. And we're basically saying, we're not far away from having like home use nuclear pellets that you'll buy your uranium and you'll stick it in your boiler and away it goes.
Oh, wow.
Next year, but not far off.
So you get your uranium delivered with your bill.
Mr. Handy.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing I will say I noticed on the speaking side, the awkward moment of the conference for mine was Bob Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, basically saying, so, you know, my hedge against macroeconomic problems is I have houses full of gold bars all over the world. And if something happens in the US, I just back my private plane up, fill it up with all the gold and take it somewhere else. And everyone else on the stage is like, well, there's information you can use, guys. Like,
yeah.
back your private plane up and fill it with gold bullion.
He better step up his security.
I think
man.
maybe, you know, there's probably going to be some other things between where we are right now and where he wants us to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That'll be the rich dad, filthy rich dad.
So there you go.
I don't think that we necessarily are going to do a lot of business out of it. Like, there's a lot of mining deals out there that are cautiously optimistic that things are going to go well in 2023, but nobody's on the dance floor yet, right? Everybody wants to see someone else out there. You know, when lithium was hot 5 years ago, everyone was like, yeah, let's go. Everyone is just kind of like, even the battery metals guys are like, you know, if we have to raise money for whatever reason, it's not that easy just yet. We're not doing any marketing just yet because we're not sure it's going to work. It's like cautiously optimistic would be, I think, the temperature that I got from the conference, but we're a long way from the halcyon days.
Absolutely. Just seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It depends on how things shape up in 2023.
Dying in the streets, so that's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last few years.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Well, there you go. That was our viewpoint and wrap up of the Vancouver Resource Investor Conference, the 2023, that just took place 2 weekends ago, I believe. And that was at the West Convention Center here in Vancouver. I guess upcoming, we have the PDAC conference, which is in Toronto. So if anybody is able to go out to that, that's something you can look forward to. I believe we are sending some representation out there ourselves. So we will be taking that in and come back with a review of that particular conference as well. So that wraps it up today for this particular session of Investor Roundtable. I've got Chris Perry. Hello, Chris. And also Vishal Tour, our technical master. Hello, Vishal. We're going to say goodbye to you right now. Just remember, anything we've said today is, you got to take, not necessarily with a grain of salt, but do your due diligence, please.
Not financial advice.
No. Exactly. Look stuff up for yourself. Yep, totally. All right. Well, there you go. We will see you soon. Take care. And
one thing before we go.
Okay.
See anything here?
No.
I used to have these dark spots here that a certain social media troll has spent the last year making
going
fun
on
of.
about.
So I got some laser done.
Oh, wow.
Clean as a whistle.
During the conference, what happens with the laser stuff is your skin gets darker before it lightens up. Yep. So when I was at the conference, like every spot they hit with the laser, which is about 17, it looked like I'd been on meth withdrawal. So those people who said, "Are you okay?"
That would have been me.
Fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay. It's all good.
Good.
The next day, it was all great. It was very frustrating. Awesome. Anyway, to the social media troll,
there you go.
I can take the spots off my face, but you can never get your hair back.
Nice. Dunk. There you are. Well, that wraps it up for today's Investor Roundtable. We'll see you soon, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.